Madison Hansen. I come from Ada County Sheriff's Office as a dispatcher, and I'm now a public health preparedness planner with Central District Health. So today I'm going to go through ARVP. So that stands for Ada's Registry of the Vulnerable Population. And just a little background on this. So kind of the why for this program. One of our original founders, her name is Catherine Tilby. She was a caregiver for her grandfather who had Alzheimer's, and that's what brought her to Idaho. So she was living with him, caring for him, and then really recognized a gap in the coverage of service that we had as far as emergency response went, and the intense amount of stress that it could put on a caregiver in the case of someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia eloping, and then not really having a good way to get them back if they went out without a phone, or if it's somebody who found them that doesn't know them. So she was experiencing the stress of that and started doing some research to look into other programs throughout the country and throughout the world to see if there was anything like that. And we kind of joined our team and found that there were some programs similar to ARVP that I'm going to go into throughout the country, but there was nothing anywhere close to this within Idaho. So we worked to fill that gap, and we wanted to make sure it was something that we could make happen sooner rather than later. So it's all integrated with everything we already had in dispatch. So we didn't have to try to get any additional money. We just had to do a little tweak with IT, talk to legal, and get this going, but just so that we could get it going faster, because anytime you add something that costs money, it takes a lot longer, which is something that we're also encouraging other counties and response agencies to look into as well, is working within the system that they already have to kind of adapt it so that it is usable and usable quickly, instead of having to wait till another budget year to get going. So let's see. I apologize. I think I'm having some slideshow funkiness. Maybe it's just being slow. Okay, so the objectives are going to be to understand ARVP, what the program is, to identify the groups of people who can benefit from ARVP as a program, understand and explain how information is obtained and utilized within ARVP, also how it is stored and disseminated, and then understand how to use the program. So we kind of went over the overview, but I'll go through this. So it's a program offered through Ada County Sheriff's Office. It is ran through dispatch, and it's a program designed to provide family members with a way to register their loved ones and provide essential information on their loved ones to the responders so that we can get them home fast and safe if they do elope. So it provides first responders access to vital information, such as the specific needs of the individual, and anything that will help them, and it helps the responders identify them and recover them, especially when time is of the essence. So the goal is to have information provided by the family members that is then relayed to first responders. That way it's coming direct from the source, and first responders can have that available when they're looking for someone or trying to help a found disoriented subject, and trying to get them home. That way they kind of have some background on that person if that person's unable to provide that. And then again, assist on them being returned home in a timely manner. And the goal of ARVP is to allow a higher level of service to be provided to the community, and then just to help our responders connect with the people a little bit better and get them home in a safe fashion. So how it works, so it's a voluntary program. All of the information that ARVP is based off of is provided by family members through a fillable form on the Ada County Sheriff's Office website. And I'm going to walk through that in a little bit just so that everyone can see. The fact that it's voluntary and that all this information goes onto a secure database that is controlled by dispatch allows it to be in compliance with HIPAA. So all of their information is still protected and secured. It's not going to be something that the general public can see once it's submitted. So it stays private, and then dispatch maintains all of the records and updates them on an annually basis. And then the information is provided through BOLOs, premise warnings, and phone number alerts. What that means is if we run a name, they'll have information on that person pop up, or an address, and we can run a range within an address so we can find anybody in the program that's within like a mile or 2 miles, whatever we determine of that address, or a phone number. So if we get a call from a phone number, we can kind of do a search on that to try to have multiple different ways to get access to the same information. So that just allows for quick identification. Oftentimes it's going to be of places of frequency, emergency contacts, and then home addresses. And again, helping for a faster reunification process between the family and the family member. And then the members will receive an automated yearly update from dispatch to remind them to update the information. So if somebody were to move, we can get an updated address, or if there were some kind of further deterioration that we needed to be aware of, or if something that somebody remembered changed. So if all of a sudden somebody can't remember family members, or is thinking that they live at an address that they lived at 30 years ago that they hadn't thought before, we can have that so it can kind of lean our search or lean our recovery efforts in a certain way and keep everything up to date. So who can benefit? Pretty much anybody who is vulnerable. This is an ADA specific program right now, but we were talking to other counties, again, encouraging them to get something similar going and providing whatever assistance we could so that they could get a program going as well. So anybody from a vulnerable population, specifically it was designed for people with dementia, Alzheimer's, and then additionally people with autistic diagnosis, but anybody who has these tendencies, even if they don't have a diagnosis, can be registered. You don't have to have anything specific. You just go to the website as a family member and can get the people cared for. So anybody who becomes lost easily, confused easily, they will not be turned away. So everyone can benefit. So going to go through some of the roles. So dispatcher's role is to maintain the records, and that means the emails, the yearly emails, the website, member records, and then premise information to make sure that that's current and up to date. Dispatch trains dispatch, the police agencies, and community partners on the program. So we have given a law enforcement specific presentation to all of the agencies throughout Ada County. And then we have also shared a lot of this information with like the Idaho Health and Welfare. We're working on getting it to schools and everything for people with like an autism diagnosis, and then also going to be working to get into some kind of care home just so that they have that information so they can provide it to family members. Dispatch also will provide the information to the field, so the responders as necessary, and then promote community involvement. This went live during COVID, so we kind of have had a hard time with that aspect because just getting rolling with that, and a lot of the stuff was canceled and the in-person events were canceled. So the thing with ARVP is you've got to be registered for it to be of assistance if your loved one does wander off. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody is aware of that. So the community support role is to identify a need. So if there's a member of the community that anybody knows of that needs some extra assistance and can benefit from the program, we just ask that you provide the information on ARVP and how to register and promote support of the program and spread the word so that everybody who can benefit is able to register. And then additionally, community support role is you can enroll members of the community if you're not getting support from their family members or caretakers. And this could also mean if they're having a hard time figuring out how to use the website, you're able to do that for them, just as our law enforcement officers, if they're out there and they recognize that there's a need, or potentially there's someone who has dementia and does not have a caregiver present to register them, they can get that going just so that we have the information. If that person were to elope, we can get them back. And then dispatch will also, if they're struggling and they're working the website, dispatch can help them register over the phone and just do it for them as well. So how to access ARVP online. So you go to the Sheriff's Office website, and then we're just going to walk through this. You'll click the ARVP link. So within the Sheriff's Office website, you can go to the safety link that's at the top, and then there's a drop down, and that will go to the Vulnerable Population Registry. There's a little blurb on the screen about what it is, if you're going to be referring to someone to this so they can kind of read about it for themselves. There's an email address on there, so if anybody has any questions, they can email that email address specifically, and then the dispatch admin will respond to it pretty quickly. And then that blue box is the link that you can click on to register it. And then it will walk through a series of questions, including name, contact information, primary caregiver, any diagnoses that they need to be aware of, any medications that someone is reliant on. So if they are insulin dependent and being without that for a long time is going to cause some kind of problem, all of that information can be on there as well. There's a spot to list conversation topics that are easy. So if somebody is still thinking or is afraid of something and is comfortable talking about their son being in the military or something like that, the officers and responders have a easy way to talk to them and establish that. It's got vehicle information. So if they were to wander off in a specific vehicle, there's a spot where it can discuss wandering tendencies. So if there's a store people tend to wander to, or if they tend to wander towards water, or if they like to go to church and maybe they're trying to find their way to church, all of that information can be there just to have a database of information for the responders. And then it also kind of cues us in. So if a civilian were to call in a disoriented subject and they found somebody who was in the area of this church, and we can do a radius search and see if there's a resident that's registered within ARVP within that area, and we can maybe identify them and figure out who their emergency contacts are so we can get them home or figure out where they live. So the screen here is kind of what it looks like when there is an ARVP person within dispatch. So the yellow shows the address that was associated, and then it just indicates that there's an ARVP entry. And then on the right, it kind of shows what it would look like on the dispatch screen. So again, it goes through what their name is, if they had filled out driver's license, a physical descriptor, their birth date. And then at the very bottom, there's a spot for the primary contact, the address, the secondary address, diagnosis, medical information, any communication methods that they need to be aware of, fears, if they have a tendency to carry any kind of weapons or anything that they would need to know of, what the wandering tendencies are, any triggers, any way to de-escalate the person, and then any calming techniques, safe topics, and then there's a school list in there just because this also can be utilized for children, specifically if they've got like an autistic child, but any information will be in there so that the officers have that instead of kind of going out of situation blind. And then this screen shows the radius warnings. So dispatch can run an incident or a location and bring up all of the premise warnings, specifically for ARVP within a predefined radius. So that's where it would help really well if somebody was found wandering and they weren't able to tell you their name and they weren't able to tell you where they live. We could run that and go through and try to find a picture of them or a physical descriptor and confirm with the officers so that we could get that person home quickly. And it just, again, aids in providing the information so that it can kind of eliminate some of the stress that the people may be feeling. Any questions on ARVP?
So there was one question put into the chat. Do you work with ifineedhelp.org?
I am not familiar with ifineedhelp.org, so no.
May I?
Yeah.
So ifineedhelp.org was specifically designed for people with disabilities, so not necessarily the Alzheimer's, but more of the Down syndrome, everything else. They actually have QR codes that emergency responders can use. I've used them before. And if this is only available in Ada County, it might be helpful to let the other counties know if they're not going to do a system like this, maybe make sure that their technology, because all the information that you just said, that's all you can put all that into their secured website as well. And it generates a QR code that first responders can scan.
Okay, yeah, I will let Ada County know about that as well, to make sure that they're aware, because I don't think that that's something that they're familiar with.
Networking is fun.
Absolutely.
Connections. All right.
Madison, thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge and all the work that you and your colleagues, have put into this. And thank you for joining us this morning.